Welcome to Good News on Entertainment. I'm your host, Summer Senni. My guest today is very active in the film industry. He is the founder of the Perennial Film Festival, and I'm excited to talk with him. Please welcome Ryan Sharp to the show. Ryan, welcome.
Hi.
So how did you become interested in the film industry?
At an early age, I idolized a couple comedians, Louis Anderson being one. He didn't use any foul language, and yet he was, very funny. And I began studying a lot of his routines, and I actually performed for the talent show and went from the, least popular, most picked on kid to the most popular kid in the school.
Oh, wow.
And I continued to perform that, through high school, more or less because I was backwards kind of socially. And so my best friend was also interested in filmmaking. And at the time, I grew up, we didn't have computers, we didn't have cameras, so the best I could do was I had a tape recorder. And I idolized Cardinal baseball. Mm-hmm. Jack Buck was like my hero, so I always wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So I would, plug a microphone in and actually make up entire baseball games. And
very cool.
That worked into doing comedy shows like radio shows. Well, then eventually I got to we actually bought a video camera, and my dad finally let me use it. And I was in 8th grade by the time I actually got to use a camera. And the rest is history. I was writing my own comedy and did 10 episodes of what I call Saturday Night Crack-Ups, where we actually acted all impromptu, with a loose script. We did a lot of parodies on other things we saw going on. I made fun of my teachers on the shows, stuff like that. And so that's how it started. And then I went to school for filmmaking and got a degree in filmmaking, and just worked on a series of short films primarily. And I'm hopefully we'll be able to get into more documentaries and things, but
wow,
that's kind of how it started.
That's awesome. So you've kind of always had a passion for
yes.
film, and so you've always wanted to have a career in film then?
Yes.
Wow, that's so awesome. So what would you say is your specialty in film? Because there's a lot of different areas, so what would be your niche?
Well, I learned from a guy that actually won an Oscar for a Vietnam documentary.
Wow.
And most of the students in the class, and I'm referring to the advanced courses to get my degree, most of them had actually failed 1 or 2 times his course.
Wow.
And I was the only student to ever get an A+ on his final and, get an A in the course the first time actually going through it. And it was a very rigorous course. And he even told people that, my goal is to get you out of this course, because he wanted to separate those that just thought, oh, it's cool to be in movies, from those that, actually put in the time.
Yeah.
So I had a course on script writing, which I have written a couple scripts. I have a lot of that are in development. I've also written a book. But script writing I'm trained in, directing, all the areas of production. I don't worry too much about special effects. I don't think that, we were taught that you can't make or break a film with special effects. Mm. So I leave that to the young kids. Editing I used to do. Now I have a nephew that's 18. He can, he grew up with computers, and I just sat by him, and before I even say, oh, that's a little long, that take, he's already fixed it. So I don't do a lot of editing or special effects, computer stuff, but anything production-wise.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. What have been some of the highlights of your career in film?
Well, the film festival is primarily what I'm working on now, because I want to bring, I got saved after I graduated from college, so everything kind of shifted to ministry and trying to get, lead people to Christ. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, I need to use this talent to try to bring people to the Lord, and that's really where my focus has been. I do a lot of preaching and evangelism as well, but that's really where my heart lies, is trying to tell stories that not only make Christians think, because Christian films have gotten better over the past 20 years, but some of them are still a little bit to the side that, the fact is non-believers are not going to watch those films.
Right.
The Case for Christ, I think, was an example of where we need to go in terms of films, because it did show a rough person, a guy that was not at peace with himself, and it really, I think, would register to the atheist. And I'd like to see more Christian films that do that. So that's kind of where my passion is.
Wow, awesome. So you are the founder of Perennial Film Festival. So tell us a little about that.
Yeah, I put together some short films and got involved in 2010. The crew I was working on, we won Best Local Picture in the Fort Myers Film Festival. And that was kind of my first taste at trying to submit to film festivals. And what I saw over and over again was, exorbitant fees, $50, and Sundance is like $120. And half the time you're sitting there in limbo wondering, am I going to need to, prepare for a vacation to go to, this film festival? And a lot of them don't even tell you whether you're accepted or not. If you're lucky, you get an email that says, thanks, but no thanks, And I thought, that just doesn't register with me, because I believe if you pay for something, you ought to get a service for it. And I also saw a lot of bias in the industry, because I judged for the Fort Myers Film Festival. I helped start that festival. And I noticed that there was a lot of anti-Christian bias among people in general, among the judges, and I didn't like that. So I felt like we're losing an opportunity here if we don't open the dialogue between Christians and non-believers. So I really feel like it was a calling that the Lord. I always wondered, why did I waste money at college for film when all the people I know making it never went to college. And I realize now, God did have a purpose for that, and I do have the training necessary to have a good dialogue with filmmakers. And so that's why I started this, is to provide a platform for filmmakers to connect, learn, and reach people via the film craft, and open up the dialogue between Christians and non-Christians at our film festival. And I can go into more of that, as I talk about, what we did our first year.
Yeah, well, that's great. And we have a short trailer to introduce Perennial Film Festival more. So let's show that to our viewers. Wow, what an interesting trailer and a great introduction to the rest of our interview. So, Ryan, you mentioned a little bit before our trailer about Perennial Film Festival, but tell us exactly what Perennial Film Festival is.
Well, like I say, Perennial Film Festival is about providing an avenue for filmmakers to connect with the public, to also learn, to be able to teach, and then also to reach out to the community. So, as a Christian filmmaker, I want my films to impact people. I want them to lead people to Christ. And so this this is the perfect venue for that. In fact, I purposely have picked a building, the historic building in Punta Gorda that was an old theater.
Oh, okay.
And it has a very intimate feel. And so, this isn't something where you're going to have 10,000 seats and just go and watch films. But this is something where you actually get to discuss the films, you get to interact. Give you an example of that. The first night, our opening night, we showed a Christian film called The Coming Convergence. Very, very well-known Christian film. And it's a documentary about the second coming of Christ, and extremely well done. And I was like, well, you're going to have some people kind of probably frustrated with that, but I wanted to, do it. So I showed it the first night. There was some people in the audience that were clearly not believers, and pretty hard against Christians. And I watched this gentleman as he watched this film, and he just sat there glued to it, and didn't get up and walk out. I mean, this is like a 2-hour documentary.
Oh, wow.
On the coming of Christ, and he's sitting there watching it without any, thinking, what time it is. So he sits there, and the film ends, and he just sat there kind of awestruck. And I went and I talked to him about the film, and we ended up talking for 2 hours after the film festival, just about, it opened up the conversation about, is Christ real? And, and this is a guy that was a hardcore atheist, and you're going to find that a lot in the media industry. It's a very secular field, and I guess you have to have a very strong will to be able to enter that environment and share your faith, because you're going to be ostracized. Certainly in college, I was ostracized for my faith. So I think that is a good example of why I'm doing it, and why we need believers to attend the festival.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example of you being able to use the festival as a vehicle for Christ, because you're showing, secular films, but also Christian films, and that opens up a dialogue, like you had with this gentleman for 2 hours afterwards. Like, how amazing is that, So that's wonderful that you're able to do that. So why did you name the festival Perennial Film Festival?
Honestly, I just was Googling, and I was like, okay, everything I was coming up with was already taken. And, at first we had Filmmakers for Christ, which I still have a website, filmmakersforchrist.org, and that's specific to drawing Christians that want to be involved in film. That's the purpose of that. But I didn't want to specifically market my films with that, because again, I wanted non-believers to be able to come and sit and watch the film and not say, oh, well, this is a Christian film, I'm not even going to enter the room.
Right.
So I don't want to say I'm tricking people into getting in there, but I am trying to open the door. Now, I should say that, you mentioned secular films. We are a Christian film festival in that, we don't allow any films with nudity, any, sexual content, excessive violence. In fact, if there is violence in the picture, it has to be a war picture or something that's trying to portray reality. And that goes for the foul language as well. We don't allow, we only allow, minor foul language, and that's only if it makes sense to the topic. So if it's a war picture, where somebody's trying to portray a guy that's, just been shot at or something, then, we have to be realistic. But at the same time, there's never a place for excessive language, excessive violence, certainly no nudity. So we don't even allow those films to be submitted. So Christians can rest assured that if they come to the festival, they're not going to be offended.
Right.
Compared to, again, I hate to do this, to Eric. I know Eric of the Fort Myers Film Festival, but the fact is, he turned a lot of Christians off because he was showing full frontal nudity. And a lot of the films that he tends to show are very violent. And, I don't think there's a place for that. I think you can tell a story, Case for Christ being a perfect example, where a guy can be rough around the edges and realistic, even have a secular rock song in the film, but still portray that, reality.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what makes Perennial Film Festival different, is having those
it's very
parameters
different.
and, so people of all, Christians and non-Christians can both come to the festival and still, enjoy and have a good time without either side really being offended. So.
Well, and that's the thing. It seems like there's either 99% of the festivals out there, just like 99% of Hollywood, is extremely left. Everything is biased. They will not allow a Christian viewpoint. They will not allow any conservative viewpoints to be heard. When I say conservative, I mean truly constitutional conservative, as I am. And I've been around that crowd. They just, they're very negative towards even letting that dialogue happen. The problem is a lot of other festivals, like in Nashville, I believe, they're only Christian films. So, they're going to draw your Christian filmmakers, but they're not going to have a venue where you can reach out and try to impact a non-believer.
Right.
So I'll give you an example of how this works practically. We had 12 films shown in our festival this year. Early in the day on Saturday, I decided I would go ahead and show the documentaries because they tend not to be as popular as the short films. So we saved the shorts for the prime time. Well, the documentaries were earlier, and I had a film that was more or less, it was kind of an environmentalist type film, but it was well done. It wasn't a preachy environmentalist film where it's, blaming everybody for the ozone and global warming, but it was making a basic appeal of, here's the problem with the Fox River and this is how we need to fix it. But it had an environmentalist tint to it. Well, we played that right up against a documentary called Switchers, which was about people that had switched from Democrat to Republican, and it wasn't a politically based documentary. It was interviewing steel workers and interviewing the people on the street. Just very well done, very objective. So that's one way we can show the two sides, politically. We also, we had a short film, that was a Christian short film. The message of the film, it was called Giving Christmas. In fact, I have a slide of that. But it was about a lady that loses her car keys. It's a comedy. And she's basically stranded overnight. And she meets this homeless lady and realizes what it's like to sleep on the street. And then she ends up getting all 5 of her kids involved in helping this homeless person. And it's, very lighthearted, very kind of a Hallmark film.
Yeah.
So we showed that up against The Raven, which was written by somebody that's very, I guess, kind of negative on life. Has a different, religious philosophy, obviously, than what I do. More critical type comedy. And so we showed these back to back, and it allowed, both sides to have that dialogue and, see what the differences were. So
yeah, that's awesome that you're able to, show both viewpoints and,
right.
have that contrast, but in an acceptable way. So.
And we do draw lines. I'm not going to show a film that's promoting homosexuality.
Right.
I'm not going to show a film that's promoting abortion. So, we're going to draw the line there. But when it comes to people's faith, and the main thing we want to do is get people to interact. I mean, that's one of the missions of the festival, is to create an atmosphere of interaction. Not only around the craft itself, we do discuss a lot about, the lighting and the sound and the booming and we want to educate people on what actually goes into making a film, because it's extremely hard. But we also want them to get to hear from the filmmaker about what their passion was, what were they thinking about the film.
Yeah, because all of that is important.
Right.
So if you have a filmmaker who says, I want to submit my film to Perennial Film Festival, what is the process that he or she needs to go through?
If they want to submit, again, the main thing is no nudity, no excessive violence. Certainly, if there is any violence, it needs to be a war picture or something that makes sense for it could be like a gang picture, like Gran Torino is one of my favorite films of the last 20 years, so that had some violence because it was portraying reality. That's the main thing. Make sure you're submitting a film that works with what we have. I also don't prefer films that just are there to be silly and don't have a moral point or some kind of a message that it's trying to send. So, make sure your film has a message that works with our festival, again, that will encourage people to talk about it. So that's the first thing. And then you can just go to perennialfilmfestival.com. There's a submission link right there on the front page, a button. You just click the button and you can upload your film. Our costs on our film festival are purposely kept lower than a lot of the other festivals because I know we encourage student filmmakers. We also, one thing a lot of festivals don't do that we do is we encourage senior filmmakers. So 70-plus filmmakers actually get the same discount as students.
Oh, very cool.
And in our first festival, we had a first-time filmmaker from New York City. He's also from Indonesia, new to the United States, and he won Best Short. We also had a senior, two sisters that were over 70, submitted a film called Western Jubilee, and it did very well at the festival. So we take pride in all of our filmmakers.
Wow, that's awesome. All the different types of filmmakers that
yeah.
you have and all the different films you're showing. That's wonderful. So now, with all of the films that you get submitted for Perennial Film Festival, there's only so many you can show. Right. So how does the selection process work?
Okay, the selection process is, luckily because of a couple websites that cater to film festivals, they really have got this thing figured out really well to where the films are uploaded through the website, and then I get the films as they submit to me. They pay the price, and then the film comes to me through email, and then I'm able then to select judges that I want to evaluate the film. Okay. So I actually have a panel of judges. They're paid judges. They all have professional careers. We have one that works for ESPN.
Wow.
One is working up in Massachusetts doing commercials, also documentaries up there. And the other one's award-winning filmmaker. And so we have, and different ages. So we have a panelist group that then gets they get the film, and we have a very thorough evaluation. This is something that also sets us apart from almost all the other film festivals. We actually will evaluate your film professionally. It's an 8-page evaluation. It covers everything from the script, the story, the acting, the sound, the sound mix, cinematography, lighting. Even the titles are discussed. Every little aspect of the film is evaluated and handwritten by the panelists, and then they scan that, email it to me, then I email it back to the filmmaker. So for the fee, they're actually getting a very good service.
Yeah.
Because as a filmmaker, one of the hardest things to get is actual professional feedback. I mean, it's easy to go to your family and friends and they're going to love the film.
Mm-hmm.
But what you really need is a professional to say, okay, your sound's not working here, or, this guy was way out of line with his, performance, whatever. So, we believe we really are giving a very good service for what we're charging.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for our viewers who want to come to the film festival, what's the cost?
The cost right now, we're negotiating on that. I can say we're much lower than anything else around. That's again to encourage people to show up and not feel like, my wife and I are not rich, I'll be honest with you. And a lot of the activities that take place on the square in Punta Gorda, you're talking $65 just to go to some of these concerts they have. Well, I don't have that, and I'm not going to spend that. And the other film festival they have in town, somebody told me they charged $30 or $40, and that's for one night of 3 hours, just solid films. There's no interaction there. There's no meeting the filmmakers, hearing from the filmmakers. That's just basically a, film after film shown. And yet they're charging 30. So we're going to be about half that, $20 for an all-day pass. And that's literally all day Saturday. If you want the whole weekend pass, which is an all-access pass, that's 40. And then we have our VIP pass, which is 50. And the VIP pass basically enters you into drawings. We give away, all of our filmmakers send posters, they send extra films, they send signed pictures. So all of that is usually, some of it is sold, but most of it is given as a prize to the VIPs. So
that's great.
A lot of things to do there.
Yeah, it's well worth it too. That's awesome. Now you yourself have your own short film that you've recently produced, The Disloyal. So tell us a little about that.
The Disloyal started it with a nightmare that I had. I woke up and I thought, man, and this happens a lot with my books and things. I'll get an idea and I'll just write feverishly. I've written whole sermons just at 3 o'clock in the morning because the Lord says, write this down. So that's kind of how this was. And I said, man, if I can put this on film, it'll be amazing. So, it's a film that's not meant to be taken necessarily literally. It's supposed to get you emotionally. So it is very emotionally stirring because I wanted it to bring out the emotions one feels when they are let down. For instance, and it could be different, but in the show, my dad has a heart attack, and I don't have my wife has driven the car away, and so I don't have a car to get to where he is. So I asked this guy, can you please give me a ride? And it's actually a friend. In the original script, he's a pastor, and I did. I took that out of there, but in the original script, he was a pastor, and I'm asking for help. Well, he says, I'll help you. Well, he ends up he goes out and he's waiting for this ride to get to his dad that's having a heart attack, and all of a sudden the car passes him by. Well, he doesn't really think about it the first time, but here comes the car again, and it passes him by, and it's a continual loop of rejection. And so obviously it's not reality, but it's meant to show the actual the emotional terror it takes when we don't let our yes be yes as Christians. When we say yes, God bless you, brother, I'll be there for you, but
Ryan, we're running out of time,
Right.
and we've had the information on our screen so our viewers can purchase tickets. Thank you so much. Have a great week. God bless.